episode of Checkered Roots. I do appreciate you joining us from wherever you may be. A couple more housekeeping things. Just again, if you guys have not checked out blackdirtracingco.com, please make sure to head on over there. We will be running some more sales here coming up, so be on the lookout for those. You know, I run a lot of those through the social media stuff, through my videos, through the podcast episodes, stuff like that. Just as a little thank you to you guys for watching these and supporting the journey and all that stuff. So be on the lookout for some more discount codes coming very soon. We're working on new schemes to be putting out. We're always trying to give something new and good. And you know, like I said a couple episodes ago, we'll be starting to work on some of our fall schemes here coming up really soon. So be on the lookout for those as well. And then tonight, I'm really excited for this one tonight. It's a IMC hobby stock driver. He is a young man who is about to go on his college endeavor. And so without further ado, let's get him in here, Mr. Will. Will, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good, Alex. How are you?
Doing good, brother. Doing good, man. Just living large, having another good evening. Can't complain. Can't complain. Weather's been nice here in Kansas City, so yeah, man. Can't ask for much more.
That's good. It's been pretty hot a lot this week in Nebraska, so it's getting a lot of humid, a lot of heat. So it'll
Yeah,
be interesting moving for sure.
joys of the Midwest for sure. So let's kind of get into this thing, man. Tell us a little bit about you. You know, tell us your name, where you're from. You know, we kind of went over a little bit what you race, but we can kind of go deeper into that.
Mhm.
Let's just kind of give me a brief overview of you and your story and where you come from.
Yeah, so but obviously, like you said, my name is Will Doudney. I am from Nebraska. Um, I raced an IMCA hobby stock. Before that, I raced dirt go-karts for about 12 years, roughly. And then at age 14, we started doing hobby stocks. Initially, before that, we were actually going to go into 600 micro sprints, but we found out that that's about the same price to go into a hobby stock. So we're like, since we're going there, might as well just start there. Um, and it actually was my dad's words exactly were, it's a big go kart. Just drive it like it's your go kart.
Sure.
Little little bit more steering angle for sure, but
Right. Well, tell me a little bit about that. So, what would you say the biggest change was? You know, going, and it sounds like it's pretty recent, but what was the biggest change going from go karts to a full size car? Was that a big learning curve? Were you able to apply a lot of stuff that you learned in karting to that, or kind of talk to me a little bit about that?
yeah, I'd say it was a pretty steep learning curve. The difference in how to apply the throttle was a really big difference, going from a real small go-kart motor to a, 350 small block V8. A big power difference there. In our hobby stocks, we're actually on um, a GM metric frame. So we're on stock suspension and stock locations, so we don't have a whole lot of adjustability. Really, all we have is springs and shocks, so we got to kind of make it work that way.
So then, what was the initial draw to racing? You know, I know kind of talking with your dad a little bit, it sounded like you guys were kind of a little bit, all around the track and stuff like that. But what was personally for you the appeal and the draw to racing?
The big thing for me, um, obviously, first was going to the track every weekend, being around a lot of friends, family. That's actually where I got a lot of my racing family, we call it. And then one of my longtime friends, he actually is a few years older than I am. He started racing go-karts, and he was telling me about it one night after we were done at the races and went back to his house. And he's like, "Hey, I think a good idea for you would be go race go-karts." And so I went home that later that night and talked with mom and dad about it, and they were, you know, they said, "We'll see what happens, and when you get to the age we feel is old enough, we'll see if we can get you one." And so at age 7, dad comes home and he has something in the back of the truck, wasn't telling me what, and pops tailgate down, and there's a go-kart.
Sure.
And next thing you know, we're ripping it up and down our um, storage unit drive. Probably shouldn't have been doing that, but fun time to have.
Right. No, that's awesome, man. What motor was on the back of your first go kart? I know it sounds like you were kind of younger, but what did you guys run?
They were Predator clone motors. Um, I want to say they were like 150 cc.
The
I'm
150s.
probably off on that,
No, you're
but
fine.
yeah.
Interesting. I've been looking into getting my son. He loves racing. I had a what I feel like is a bad parenting moment, but with good intentions. He has this little electric go kart, right, that he likes to whip around, and I mean, it only does like 15 mile an hour, but this thing, it gets with it. But the big thing with this little go kart that he has is if it doesn't have brakes, right? So you pick your foot up off the throttle and
Mhm.
it just comes to a stop. Well, I had the idea, and he loves racing. I mean, everything is racing for him. So I was like, we should try to get him into karting. And around us, there's actually really close. There's a couple of little kid kart tracks, and so they run Comer C50s, the little 50 cc engines on the back of these little kid karts out there. So I found one on Marketplace. I did the same thing. I went and picked it up after work one day, and I brought it home. Well, we went over brakes, and I started it in the driveway, and I just wanted to see like how much does this thing want to spool up. So
Mhm.
I was holding it, and it didn't give a lot of like wanting to get going. So I was like, okay, so maybe it's not like gonna idle up super bad. Well, we take it up to this parking lot, and it's a concrete parking lot with curb all the way around it and all this stuff, but it's a big parking lot. It's a church parking lot. Well, I told him about the brakes again. We went over the brakes again. I start it, and once it spools up and gets going, he's doing like 25 within like right now. And he freaks out because he's only 4. So he freaks out, he panics, and forgets about the brakes. And this went on for what felt like 10 years, but he's just doing donuts. I mean, he's trying to spin this thing out to get it to stop. He is crying. I'm freaking out. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. I was thinking about trying to catch this thing. Probably would have ended up a lot like this, to be honest with you. But I was trying to figure out how to get it to stop. He ends up hitting the curb dead on, going about 25,
Ooh.
and it just, I mean,
Mm.
folded up the front of the cart, put a giant steering wheel bruise in the middle of his chest, and that was,
Mm.
to this point, that was the end of my son's racing career. So he will not touch it now. But
Ooh.
yeah. So fun times with that, man. Fun times with that. But
Ooh.
I'm glad that you were able to go racing. So did you race the 150 cc's? Did you take steps up in karting, or did you stick with the 150s then kind of go into what you're doing now with your hobby stocks, or did you step up in motors?
So for us, basically what it was is there were restrictor plates, and we had different classes that had different restrictor plates. So I started out in the rookie class, which had the biggest restrictor plate, and then you had junior one, junior two, and then you went into adult. And basically the restrictor plate opened up more and more as you went up in classes. So I stopped at the junior two level, and then I went up into the hobby stock because the classes were separated by ages.
Sure.
So when you hit a certain age, you went up into the next class.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And actually, so just kind of some backstory for me, circling back to that go-karting thing with your son. Um, I actually, one thing that happened for me that was pretty scary on track. I actually had a couple incidents. One was I didn't have racing shoes at first. I just had regular tennis shoes. Well, one of my tennis shoes came untied, and it ended up winding itself around the throttle pedal. And even if I was on the brakes, it was still hitting the throttle because I couldn't get my foot off of the actual throttle pedal. And what ended up happening is I actually darted across the track because I was freaking out. I darted across the track, and luckily there were a bunch of tires in the center of the track going across it. So I actually ended up going into that set of tires, which put me at a dead stop. And then one of the officials ran over and just turned the cart off. And like I was freaking out at that point. Like I don't know how I could express how much I was freaking out at that point.
I feel,
It was insane.
yeah, that sucks, dude. I can only imagine your dad watching that happening, and I can only speak on it because obviously I haven't driven but like 5 laps in a car, but I can only imagine from your dad's point of view if it felt anything like mine, like that helplessness of like I don't know what to do. So if we ever decide to go back, get back on the little red go kart as he calls it, then we're gonna put in like a manual kill switch that I can hit from a remote somewhere, so I can shut it off. But
Right.
no, that sucks. God, it's a lot to be hauling ass across the infield and then dead stop right now. I mean, I'm sure that didn't feel good at all.
Yeah, like the carts that I stopped racing on, I want to say we probably were doing, I'd say about 30, close to 30 mile an
Wow.
hour going around our little like quarter, probably eighth mile
Yeah,
track we had at
that's hauling.
our local go-kart track.
Yeah, that's hauling the mail. No, that's
Yeah.
that's really cool, dude. So, talk to me a little bit of insider knowledge. I know you're heading off to college soon. So, what is that? What does that look like for you? What's that look like for racing? What's kind of the future look like for Will?
So like you said, heading off to college. The drive for us is about, with stopping and everything, it's about 16 hours. And it's not a not a fun drive for sure. We'll end up leaving the day before I have to move in, stay the night, and then we'll move me in. And the college actually has a dirt track racing team that they fully sponsor and everything. And then they actually own the local track that's right there, like maybe 5 miles from the university.
Oh, wow. So how does
Yeah.
that? So do you? That's I did not realize there was collegiate racing. So do you race against other colleges, or is it just like you're running the local show at the local track that night and you're just cars in the field supplied by the college, or do you supply your car and they just pay for you to run? Like, how does that kind of work?
So the university I'm going to is actually, as far as I know, the only university in the country that supplies its students with any form of racing, like automotive racing. So the university supplies the cars and the parts, and then the students work on the cars weekly, work on the cars on the weekend. The only thing they do not do is drive the haulers for the cars. So for me, when I join the racing team, I will be at the race shop for about 3 to 4 hours every day per week.
Huh. Is that does that give you any school credits for like automotive technician or anything like that, or is that just as a extracurricular?
It's an extracurricular, but the ties that come with it are out of this world because the university has ties with Lucas Oil late models, Monster Jam, World of Outlaw Sprint Cars, NHRA. That's just to name a few. I mean, there's so many out there that I'd have to compile a list to be able to even
Sure.
get them all.
No, that is incredibly interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing. So how did I'm sure that there's going to be somebody somewhere out there who wants to do something similar. If I'd have known about that back in the day, I'd have wanted to do that. But how did you stumble into that? How did you get picked up by this team, or how did you apply for it or know about it? How did that work?
So I actually learned about it this last year, and I've known about it for a couple of years now. But this last year at Eagle Raceway, about 2.5 hours from where I live, the late models went and raced there at Eagle, and they're big on UNOH because they actually have a lot of kids that'll go and help, and that's one of the reasons that I actually learned about the university was from the World of Outlaw late models. And then my dad told me about it, and got bored, decided to look up one day in school, and I realized, oh, they actually have racing teams that you can actually race for them. And then I just started doing deep dives into that.
So did you have to go through like an application process, or did you just kind of call them and express interest? And like, is it a well-known program, as in like it's hard to get into because there's thousands of kids applying for it, or is it a kind of, hey, I saw this, I want to be a part of this, and they're happy to take you on? Kind of how did that work?
So the racing team, I actually have to wait until this coming October to be able to apply for it. Sorry. Um, and I think this last year they had close to, I want to say 80 kids that were on the race teams. And what they'll do is you apply to be a driver, and then so they have the Thunder Street Stocks, and then they have UMP mods. The street stocks is like your entry class. So if you apply for it, depending on how good your application is going to look, that's what you'll start in. If you've been there for a couple years or so and you apply for a UMP mod, they'll most likely put you in one of them. And then they have uh, one kid at each corner of the race car, and then they have a floater, and then you have your crew chief, as well as your tires and engines.
That's cool, man. That's super cool. Wow. Huh. So then, okay, so you're going to UNOH, which University in Northern Ohio
Mhm.
is what I'm guessing that stands for, correct?
Northwestern, yeah.
Northwestern Ohio. Okay, my mistake.
Yeah.
What? So what are you going to be studying? What is going to be your major? And then to caveat off of that, what do you want to do with that? Like, what are the plans after college? What is the end goal look like for you? Where do you want to get to with this?
So I will be studying automotive high performance. Ironically enough, I actually have one of their UNOA shirts on
Hell yeah.
that I bought while we were there last time. Um, but I will be studying high performance automotive, and then after that, I will actually try and apply for a spot on one of the Case Construction Lucas Oil teams. Uh, which team that is, I'm not for sure.
Sure.
That'll be something to come for sure. But I'm definitely hoping to be there or on a sprint car team.
And that's
One of
that's
those two
what
is definitely a dream for me.
that's your dream career, is to work on race cars, or do you want to try to be a driver for one of them, or do you want to work on them more? Because everybody has their own thing that they love. Some people love to work on them, and some people love to drive them. Some people love both. So what's your ideal situation for you?
I would definitely love to be able to drive one. The skill for that, I don't think I have. But it would definitely be fun to be able to hop in one of those and try it. That would has been something I've always dreamt of.
Sure.
But working on them, just as big of a dream for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That'd be cool. That'd be. I had the privilege of talking to Mr. Chris Puskas, who works for Penske and works on the number two Cup car, as one of my first interviews that we did on Checkered Roots, and to see somebody be able to achieve that dream of, well, now it's my dream. It used to not necessarily be my dream, but my dream of like, hey, I want to work on race cars, or I want to work in motorsports, and for you to be able to not only go to college to study that, but to be a part of that through college, through the college that has so many different ties. Because as I'm sure you know in racing, the more people you know, the bigger of a circle that you can build, the further it's going to take you. So it sounds like you're going to start with a huge head start of getting into those top main series, to be able to have the resume and saying, hey, I studied this, and hey, I know this guy, and I know this guy, and I know this guy. And it seems like the door is kind of propped open for you at that point.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a huge thing. And I actually didn't say this and I forgot about it. They actually also have ties into like NASCAR, ARCA, stuff like that. And they actually have clubs where kids will go work for ARCA teams. It's called the Over the Wall Club. They'll work on the actual pit crews of ARCA teams doing tire changes, fuel, stuff like that.
Wow. That's cool. Man, I wonder why more schools don't do that. Racing is, it's not as big as it used to be, and I get that, but the amount of people that I feel would benefit from that, or the traction that would get if you could introduce some kind of collegiate stuff around the country and not just have UNOH, who does stuff like this, like you would almost create a pipeline like there is for. I mean, it probably would never get as big, but like there is for football or there is for any literally any other sport. There's collegiate sport for it. And I don't understand why nobody else does that. I mean, props to you for finding the one that does it, man. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I think another big thing is it's just hard to finance for the most part, and I don't know how much, kids would want to do that,
Sure.
at least nationwide.
Yeah, then and that's a very fair point, and that's a big thing in racing is money, and it's an unfortunate part of it, but that's the biggest thing in racing is the money side. But no, that's super cool, man. Well, talk to me a little bit. I know that your dad, owns RS Customs, who's one of my partners here. So talk to me a little bit about how that's benefited you with having your dad who works in motorsports, and has that helped you? Has he been able to kind of show you a lot of things to where you have a deep understanding of your car and what you need and what you're doing and all that stuff? Like how does that kind of help you out?
Yeah, that definitely helps a big part with him having his business. Uh, it helps me be able to socialize a lot better and be able to attack different situations better because we've done a lot of trade shows these past couple of years. And actually, 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I actually met the owner of Zamp Helmets and Safety Gear, and I've actually gotten to know him pretty well, and we've talked a few times here and there, and he's definitely helped me a lot in confidence for sure.
Oh, that's
And
yeah,
just
that's
the
awesome.
ties that come with and just the ties of coming that come with being able to have somebody that can get you parts from any just about any major supplier is huge in this world for sure.
Sure, man. Yeah, absolutely. Well, talk to me. Let's kind of pivot back a little bit. I want to hear what's your proudest moment in racing. What's something that you cherish and you hold near and dear to you. It doesn't have to be something that happened on track, but it's something to do with racing. And there's something different for everybody that we all hold dear in this sport. So what is that for you? Is there a specific story or instance or just general feeling that you hold near to you?
Mm, I would say probably the most near and dear thing to me would be the ability to meet people and almost be the closest thing to family that you could get without them actually being related by blood. I don't know, I can't even count how many people that I have met at the racetrack that have basically become family to me because of how much we've been able to help them. They've been able to help me. It's huge and it's crazy to think about it that way, but just how much you can learn to trust somebody from being at a racetrack together.
Yeah, it feels like I say it once an episode at this point, but the racing family is by far the biggest family you'll ever have. And like I said, I'm not a driver yet. I wouldn't classify myself as that yet, but you know, the openness and the love and compassion and support that you get out of the racing community is unlike anything I've ever seen, hands down.
Yeah, it's insane what, just being parked by somebody can do to get them to be able to help you. Even if you just ask for something simple, they'll go the extra mile just to be able to help you get your car back on the track.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, absolutely, man. What is what's a as someone who is a driver and who's going into who has been doing it for a while, what's kind of your biggest piece of advice that you would give someone like me, someone who's doesn't come from the sport, is trying to figure it out on my own? I have a big circle of people now, luckily, but what's kind of the biggest advice if you could go and do it over, or something that you've learned the hard way from? What's the biggest piece of advice you would give me getting into this sport?
Um, I would say it's going to be a steep learning curve. Just keep your head high. Don't get down in the dumps and just not be able to get your way back out. You're going to have good nights. You're going to have bad nights. And just try and make the lows as high as you can make them and make the highs as high as you can get.
Yeah. No, I like that, man. No, I like that a lot. No, I think that that's going to be the biggest thing for me, right? Is not getting discouraged, when I'm not. And I understand it, and it's something I've come to terms with, that I'm not going to be the best on track the first year, right? If I could just
Yeah.
be slightly better than I was last week, then I won that week. You know what I mean? I might
Hmm.
finish P last, but eventually we'll start clicking them away, and we'll get better and better, and all that stuff. But no, it's
Yeah.
yeah.
I I my dad told me this the very first time I started practicing. He told me if I spin it out, I get $15. If you can spin it out within the first time you go to practice it, you know you're going fast. So,
I like that. That's a
and that's
really
the
good
thing.
piece of advice there.
Yeah, it's, you want to be able to test the limits of your car, and being able to get practice is the best way to be able to do that. And it gives you the best way to be able to test, what works, what doesn't work, and it just helps you get more comfortable in the car for sure.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, man, that kind of that's my question list that I have. But something that I like to do, for the last little bit of these is I'm sure is I kind of like to open the floor to you. We can talk about anything that didn't come up naturally, or if there's sponsor shout outs that you need to get out of the way, or if there's merchandise stuff that you have, or social media stuff. I kind of like to say the floor is yours. So by all means, sir, Will, the floor is yours.
I actually do have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
What class are you racing at? I don't think I've ever heard you say it.
So I'm gonna race E mods. I'm not gonna be ready for B mods, and it's too expensive. So I'm gonna go to E mods, economy mods.
Ah, yeah. And then, so what sanctioning body are you in? I can't remember what
USRA.
E-mods would be.
Yeah, it's USRA.
USRA?
Yes, sir. So some tracks do it a little bit differently. So I-35 Speedway in Winston, Missouri runs E mods, and they might have slightly different rules than Lakeside Speedway might have in Kansas City, Kansas.
Hmm.
There's like the rule sheet that I go off of. A lot of it is USRA sanctioned, but there's some things in there that I think that I-35 Speedway or Lakeside Speedway, like they might have slightly tweaked rules. I think it's comparable from what I've heard, and I could be completely off base here, forgive me, but I think it's more like I think it's like a sport mod or something like that would be like or whatever the lowest modified class that you would run at your local track would be. That's kind of what I'm running.
Yeah, sport mod.
Yeah.
Sport mod's what we have. But yeah, that's pretty cool. I've never really watched USRA, but that'd definitely be something I'm gonna take a look at. Maybe
Ah,
watch you do some racing and
yeah,
see.
dude. No, you and obviously, you guys are always welcome to come on down to Kansas City, and we'll show you how we race out here. I was trying to figure it out the other night to figure out where I want to race at. I'm going to race at I-35 for points because the team that I help in the pits races at I-35 for points every week. But I think in my first
Nice.
year, if I can go race different styles of tracks, I think it's going to teach me a lot more about, what the car is doing and about setups and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to put the cart in front of the horse. Like, I need to learn how to drive the car first, right? But you can go
Hmm.
from I-35 Speedway to Lakeside Speedway, where I-35 is really technical and you don't need the giant motor to run there. Where at Lakeside, I mean, you're flat footed basically the whole lap, and it's a horsepower track. So there's like 9 or 10 different racetracks within like a 2 hour radius of where we're at here in Kansas City. So we're pretty fortunate in that. But yeah, you guys will have to come down, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would definitely say as you race more, you'll definitely learn what more your driving style is. Like my style is, if you go to real small bull ring, if we go to real small bull rings, I can't race. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at stop and go tracks. I'm good at a lot of big momentum, smooth tracks because I
Sure.
picked that up from go-karting.
Yeah, that would make sense. That seems I could see how that would transfer. That would transfer really well. Here's a question that I'm gonna add this to my question list because I think this is a really interesting question because there's for example, there is this Will that we're sitting here talking to right now, right? And then if you talk to any driver, if they put that helmet on, some of them become just a different person. But so I have to ask you, what is your driving style? Are you an aggressive driver? Are you a passive driver? Are you a let it come to me, or are you I'm coming at you? What is your driving style?
So I am a very, very, very patient driver, and that has always bugged my dad because racing go-karts, you're really short race time, so it's go, go, go. And when in hobby stocks, like when you get the real long features, being patient's a lot better because then you aren't going to use up your tires as much. I've figured out, at least for me, as I get later into the season, I realize I get a lot more aggressive.
Okay.
And my last, not this last race that I had, but my last race last year, I was running second the whole race, and I just kept getting closer and closer to the guy that was leading. And like it was almost nose to tail. And if I could have had 2 or 3 laps more and not made the mistake I did on my restart, I probably could have been pretty close to winning it. But we had a late caution, and one of our buddies who we race with all the time, he was doing good on the bottom of the track, so I figured take that advantage away from him because I was the only person who could run the top. So I figured take away the bottom and then be able to get out in front of him.
Sure.
That was my mistake. That was my mistake.
Yeah.
I got pinched on the bottom and got stuck on third.
Yeah.
So
Oh, it sucks, dude. No,
yeah.
I love the. I think that's gonna be one of my questions I start asking more often because it does. It cracks me up because sometimes the most nice, innocent people, like the one that always sticks out in my head, her name is Jaylee Reed, and I think she might have been my third interview on here, but she is like 5 foot nothing, 80 pounds soaking wet, like just the sweetest girl you've ever met. But then when she starts talking about racing, dude, she's like, I will put my damn hood through your door. Like she like gets aggressive on the track from what it sounded like. And I was just like, dude, what? I like, and so it would not have surprised me because like you're real, you're respectful and you're happy and all that stuff, but it would not have surprised me in the slightest if you would have said, if you touch me, that I'm running through you. Because like it just seems to never fail that the most like kind-hearted people just turn into like an, for lack of better terms, an asshole on the racetrack.
Yeah, there have been a couple times that somebody's rubbed me the wrong way on the racetrack, and you can see it on some of the videos. Like I've had the chance to put them in the wall, but I just didn't because of my better nature.
Yeah.
But learning from go-karts, you rub somebody the wrong way, you're not gonna like the aftermath for sure.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. Well, what else you got, brother? Yeah, I'm still, floor is still yours. What else? What else you got? Anything else you need to get off your chest or anything like that?
Um, Trying to kind of think here.
You're fine.
Really, all I can really say is go watch our racing page, 7W27W Racing on Facebook. We do a lot of Facebook Lives for every weekend. We're doing that. Some of my previous sponsors, Flea Hardy Trucking, he's been a huge one for us since day one. I could ask him for just about anything, and he'd have really no issue doing it. He probably would have bought me a late model if I would have asked for it, but
Wow.
uh, I would definitely say get good sponsors. Having great sponsors is a huge part in this sport for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a perfect segue. Kind of like I mentioned earlier. With your dad and RS Customs and your family, you guys have been so incredibly helpful and welcoming, and I can't thank you and your family and your dad's company enough for be willing to let me into that. And I'm looking forward to what the future builds with that. Hopefully we can link up at the track, and I'll definitely make sure to link all of Will stuff, and obviously all the RS custom stuff will be down in the description for anybody who wants to check that stuff out. But no, man, I'll definitely be following along and paying attention. I think that stuff you got going on up in college is awesome, man. I'm excited to see where that goes for you, dude.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a fun one. I'll have to probably stop by sometime on a weekend if I'm in KC and watch you race for sure.
Yeah, dude. by all means, I'd be more than happy to have you. I'll show you how we get down out here. I'll give you guys some good barbecue, and we'll yeah, man, we'll make it happen. But no, Will, hey man, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me and kind of chit chat and tell us your story and tell us about your future plans, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Alex.